Hello, my name's Simon Green. I've been doing some editing for Beck PG and Swinburne. This is a video for Beck and anyone else at Swinburne who wants to learn a little bit more about Camtasia and how they can spruce up their presentations. So to start with, we have here all the different bits and pieces of files that Beck sent me. Let me just give you a quick overview of what Beck did. Beck recorded the bulk of her presentation on chronological resumes using Camtasia and creating a file she called body draft. She then needed to add bits and pieces later after she'd finished the initial recording. So she went back into Camtasia and created new files where she simply recorded an introduction and a few different versions of parts that she'd already recorded. She saved each file as a separate Camtasia recording and then handed those all over to me. You can do this too. It's a simple way to offset the work by just recording and letting someone else do the work to edit it together. I'd like to just quickly show you the difference between Camtasia Recorder documents and Camtasia Studio projects. This here is a Camtasia Recorder document. You can see under the name Camtasia Recorder document. It's different to a Camtasia Studio project. A project is like a Word file, and a recorder document is the text. So when you record your recording in Camtasia or as a screen recording, it gets saved as a recorder document, which is really just a video that is using Camtasia's proprietary software. You open the video in a Camtasia Studio project, which keeps track of all the little edits and changes and zooms and movements and sound adjustments that you're going to make in Camtasia. And you'll be saving to the Studio project. So if I double-click Studio project, it'll open up Camtasia Studio, as we can see here. There are all the little edits. Just keep this in mind when I show you how I incorporate all the little bits and pieces that Beck recorded for me to incorporate later. So now I'm going to show you how I incorporated the individual elements, the individual videos that Beck recorded for me to put in later. Here we have Beck's body draft. This is the bulk of her recording. She sat there with a piece of paper and did her voiceover work, recording the screen as she went. You open that into Camtasia Studio, save it as a project file, save project. Then you can make edits. Now, the first thing you've got to do is import the media. So import media up the top left there, locate the videos that were recorded. These are going to be the things like with Beck, they were additional changes. She wanted to do a new introduction. So we'll bring the new introduction in. There it is, intro draft 3. Now, Camtasia is only going to let you select the video file, not a project file. This is the same folder as what I'm opening the file from. But you can see intro draft 3 is also an intro draft 3 Camtasia Studio project. But that's not appearing here because it's only looking for the video, not the project. So we open the video, there it is, it's just a video. There's no editing, no changes, just the video. I will drag this down into the timeline here, and it just imports it. Now we have the introduction as well as the body. You can preview a clip by double-clicking it. It's going to open the clip and show you what it is before you need to drag it down, just to make sure you've got the right clip. Once you click back down into the timeline, you'll then be previewing the timeline, not the clip. Now once I've dragged a piece of video down into the timeline, you'll notice that the way that Beck has recorded her video, she's used a webcam. That's why we can see Beck there in the screen. That appears down here as what they call PIP, which is picture in picture. The PIP video is linked to the PIP audio. Unlinked to any audio is the screen, this background bit, the screen recording itself. Some people might get stuck at this point, but let me show you how to get rid of the video and keep the audio. To the left here, you'll see a line that links them. This shows you the link between the PIP video and the PIP audio. Simply click, as you can see it says click to unlink PIP video, clip audio from PIP video. Click that link and it'll ask if you want to permanently unlink PIP video from audio. Say yes. Now you can individually select audio or video. And then all you have to do is delete the video. Now we just have the screen recording and the audio.
On my resume to download an example of a chronological.
Simple. Now that we've got our next piece of video in, I'm going to show you how to edit it. Bex recorded this video, but first she's had to set up, which you're all going to do. She's set up her PowerPoint and she's gone into full screen mode. We don't want to see that bit, obviously. We want to edit it out. Take your playhead, which is this part, showing you what's being shown, but it's also used to tell the program where you want to make changes, or edits, or all the different bits and pieces that it does. Place your playhead at the point you want the edit. So if you see down here in the waveform, the audio waveform, you want it just before the start. Then you can press S on the keyboard, which creates a split. You can also press this button here to create a split. You'll find that in Camtasia and other editing software, there's always more than one way to do something. For speed, it's best to learn the keyboard shortcuts, so I'm going to tell you what those are, because then you can go a lot faster. Once you've made the split, just select the video, press delete, select the audio, press delete, and now you've deleted the part you don't want. You'll have noticed that the video shifted to the left, but the audio didn't. This is because we unlinked them, which is just a necessity. Video will always fill an empty space in Camtasia. Audio doesn't. So when you make an edit, always remember to drag the audio across so that it's back in sync. Otherwise, it's going to keep falling out and out and out of sync, and it won't make any sense. So that's a very simple way to edit. Another way to edit is to click the edge of a clip and drag it. This is shortening the clip. It starts much later.
How to write
the audio
resume.
is completely out. The audio is completely out of sync there. So I can drag it back the other way. This is a very imprecise way to do things, and it can be good for very small edits if you need to just drag a clip right to the edge. It's great particularly for audio because the audio doesn't move, but for video it can get quite messy. So once you've imported everything that you need, you make your edits and you're ready to go. There. Once you've made your edits and you're happy with the flow of the piece, you can start playing with effects. I'm going to show you zooms, highlights, and transition. We'll start with zooms. Zooms can be found here in the zoom and pan section. All your effects will be played out in these little areas here. But we'll start with zoom. Let me just show you some zooms that I've set up based on what I did with Beck's actual work.
Professional memberships. This section is optional and only to be included if significant and relevant to the role for which you are applying. Enter this information in My Employment History. Click Add Experience Record and select Professional Memberships. Joining your professional association does demonstrate your interest in the area and commitment to ongoing learning.
There we go. So there's some zooming. Some of that you notice didn't actually zoom in or out. We'll get to that in a sec. Let's start with a standard zoom. So we start on what we call a wide shot, where we can see everything, and then we zoom in.
Memberships.
Now I've used Beck's speech as a cue. She said professional membership, so I want to zoom in as she says it. Now in editing, we want the zoom to finish as she finishes her sentence. So I'll delete this zoom and show you what I did. We position our playhead. You can use the left and right arrow keys to move the playhead frame by frame, then press spacebar to play. And I'm going to listen for the end of her sentence, for the end of her saying professional membership.
Professional memberships.
There. So I've pressed space to pause it once more. I go to zoom and pan, and I add a keyframe. It's going to add that diamond. We can see the diamond now, the little blue diamond. That is the point where the zoom finishes. Now, the next step is the scale. Scale here is how much we want to zoom in. You can adjust the slider to get scale, and then move the box to adjust where you want your focus. Or you can use the box and drag it, both its width and its positioning. Now she's saying professional membership, so we'll do a nice little type box on professional membership. Now we have our position. We start out here, we end there. The next point you want to mark, if you click back to your zoom keyframe to get right back on top of it, and adjust your duration. Now I like to have a duration that goes fairly smoothly, and generally you want a smooth duration of zoom. Too quickly and it pulls people out. You want a zoom to just be a simple part of the production, but you should be listening to the audio with the visuals just kind of lightly complementing. That's what you want to aim for, and it gives a more elegant approach. So I've dragged my duration to about 2 seconds. If we zoom in, we can see this little tail. This tail shows you the visual length of the zoom.
Professional memberships.
Now that starts a little bit early. That starts
Professional memberships.
before Beck speaks, because there's the audio form and there's the tail. So if we adjust the duration by clicking the keyframe and adjusting the slider, the tail now starts at about the same point as her speech.
Professional memberships.
There we go. Now we've got a zoom that matches the pace of her talking. Usually you want to start on a wide, zoom in to talk about what to view what we're talking about. And when you've finished a segment, it's always best to zoom back out again.
Area and commitment to ongoing learning.
So that we can see where we are within the document or within the video and move on to the next segment. A zoom out is basically the exact same thing. You get to the point that you want to zoom out. Let me delete it. Which should be just at the end of her speech.
And commitment to ongoing learning.
So I press space to pause it, add a keyframe, adjust the zoom to see everything, and then adjust the duration. Again, we'll go 2 seconds, so it's nice and slow.
Area and commitment to ongoing learning.
Lovely. And there's a zoom out. A little bit of advanced stuff is this tracking and panning.
You are applying. Enter this information
move up the
in
page.
My Employment History. Click Add Experience Record
and then
select
back down the page.
Professional memberships.
We didn't actually zoom in or out, but I used the zoom keyframes to do this. This is a little bit more advanced, but it can be great if there's long, boring parts of speech without anything visually happening on the screen. So let me show you how I did it. So I will delete what we have, and we'll start from scratch. So we start with a zoom in, and this is setting the point that we want to stay at for the rest of this clip. You know, we don't change our zoom. So what you want to do is copy the zoom with Control-C or Edit, Copy, and paste. Now, this is an anchor point. Paste another, and then paste another. Now I have 3 identical zooms at this point. I'm just going to show you what to do, and then we'll go back over what happened. Go to the middle zoom. From the middle zoom, go to where you want to end up on the screen. So we're going to drag its location to the top, but we're not going to change the scale. However, we are going to make the duration as slow as possible. You can see the tail of the zoom get nice and long. We'll leave a little tiny gap, and I'll show you what happens.
Relevant to the role for which you are applying. Enter this information in My Employment History. Click Add Experience Record and select Professional Membership.
We've zoomed up. We've panned up. So we've gotten all the way up. To get back again, we simply take this 4th point, increase the length, and it's going to take us back to where we started because we copied it from the beginning point. We copied the location and pasted it after the movement. It's a very simple way to do it. Watch.
For which you are applying. Enter this information.
That's the start of the track up.
History. Click Add Experience Record.
It finishes
and select Professional
and starts back down again.
Joining your professional association.
What we can do is adjust the zoom as well. If we pull this one across, we've got a little gap in here so that it tracks up.
Click Add Experience Record
holds,
and select Professional Membership.
And then moves back down.
Joining your professional association.
So you can use a combination of tracking, panning and zooming to create all sorts of interesting effects. And it's a great way to spruce up an otherwise boring chunk of audio only. Next, we're going to look at highlighting. Highlighting is accessed in the callout section. Callouts are all sorts of images that you place over the top of your screen. I'm just going to show you highlights. You can explore the others later. We're just going to look at highlights for now. Here is highlights. It's a highlighter, fairly simple. It starts as yellow and just creates a tinted box. You can reshape the box to your own desires using the mouse or entering in numbers. And you can adjust the fade. The fade, if you look down at the timeline, is the tail. Just like the zoom. It's that little tail at the start and end. As we adjust the fade, we're adjusting how quickly.
Employment history. Enter
There it is,
information
coming
about
in.
your employment history by selecting
You can adjust the length of the highlight.
your employment history by selecting My Employment History on the right-hand side and select relevant
On either side. Make a short fade out,
selecting My Employment History
and it's gone. So here we've got it coming in, just as she says, employment history.
your employment history by selecting My Employment History on the right-hand side.
And it fades out, nice and quick. You can keep it there for a longer period of time, just to show what we're talking about.
Employment history by selecting.
But usually it's best to fade about a couple of seconds after the point has been made. A little fade also adds a little bit more visual flair, just to keep things
About
moving
your employment
and to break things up.
history by selecting My Employment History on the right-hand.
You can add multiple callouts by just clicking the Add Callout button several times. This can be handy if you need to highlight multiple things.
Your employment history by selecting My Employment History on the right-hand.
Or you can stagger your highlights.
Your employment history by selecting My Employment History on the right-hand side and select relevant categories from the drop-down.
Next, we're going to look at transitions. Transitions can be used to get from one place to another if you've had a sudden, sharp change or shift in what you were trying to record. So, for example, we had Beck's intro from earlier. So we just transitioned into this next step. Now, let's look at the intro that Beck brought in. She ended her recording,
providing a
and then started again later. So there's going to be a jump. We're going from a black screen to this blue word screen.
presentation.
Let's
and
watch what
content
happens.
to include.
Bam. It's a bit of a jump cut. It's too quick. We can smooth the process by adding a transition. Transitions are found here in the tabs. Now these are our two videos. We've only got two clips here so far, the intro and the body. These are all empty. There's just nothing there. It just keeps those there for when you fill in more video into the timeline. This represents the cut point that we saw where we did the split. So the intro section ends here, the body section starts here. Here's your selection of different transitions. I'm going to tell you to be careful at this point. People often play with all sorts of crazy transitions like cube, rotate, flip, fold. They can be quite cheesy. You can do it to suit the tastes, but if you're going for something that's kind of important or high-end or even just needs to be serious, it's best to just go with a standard fade. Most films only ever use a fade. So let's drag that down into the transition box. We'll see what happened. And there's the transition. That's quite a long transition. But what it's effectively done is taken a still of this and a still of that and faded them across. And then the audio picks up. Now let's go back to transitions and have a look at the length of our transition. If you right click, it gives you some options to adjust the actual transition itself. You can change it to any of the different transitions you've got here. But what we want is transition duration. Right now it's 3 seconds. If you count 3 seconds on your finger, that's quite long. 1, 2, 3. That's why we had that problem back with the other clip. Usually 1 second maximum is what you want, unless you're leaving, exiting, a nice fade out. Let's go with 1 second transition. and see how that looks.
Providing advice on presentation and content to include.
That's nicer. That's a nice smooth transition, and we're into a new look, a new layout, from black to blue. So transitions are fairly simple. I would really only ever stick to fades. And you can put them in one after the other and use them for when you're changing a location or overall look, or for sections. So once you've finished making all of your edits, your zooms, your highlights, your transitions, and you're happy with what you've got, it's time to export. That's taking it out of Camtasia and turning it into a video file or flash file that can be embedded into a website or used on something like YouTube. Now I'm just going to give you a very rough outline, because the problem here is that it all depends on where you intend to send your video once it's finished. And there are so many variances that I can't possibly cover all of them. So I'm going to give you a very rough outline. My advice is to speak to Anton or anyone in the Commons part of Swinburne and tell them where it plans to go. They'll be able to give you the best outlines, the best advice for how to export your video from Camtasia. All exporting is done from this tab here, Produce and Share. You can send it straight to YouTube if you have an account. Screencast is its own thing, but we're going to go to Produce and Share. Here you can choose from various presets, blog, CD, HD, iPad, all very useful. They're going to send them out in exactly the right sort of codec. So if you can shortcut and know there's going to go to an iPhone, you can just pop it out in that format. If you go into custom production settings, you're looking at a whole lot more information. This is probably for advanced users or people who really know what they're doing with general editing and video software. Just quickly, the Flash version allows you to send it as a Flash video that can stand alone, or embed it into a website, a little mini HTML page that has all sorts of little additions like chapters, buttons, panels that you can put images into, all sorts of bits and pieces that are fun to play with. The rest of these are all video or audio formats. WMVs are perfect for Windows, but aren't very good in quality. MOVs or QuickTimes are fantastic for both Windows and PC and have a good quality. We video editors tend to use MOVs. AVIs are very large, but are pretty good for Windows if you can't get a MOV and don't like the quality of a WMV, but they're very large files. An M4V is what iPhone and iPods use. It's very iTunes friendly, very Apple friendly. It's pretty good compression too, so it's not going to be a very large file. MP3s are obviously audio only. Real Media is not used very much, and I would strongly recommend you don't use Real Media. It's very old, and I don't even know if they update their software anymore. Then we have a Camtasia streamer, which is built into Camtasia, and if you know what that is, you can play with that. And then GIFs, which are really not really going to be used for the sort of stuff that we're looking at. You can also have it spit out a few different types of formats in the one go. You can have it create an MP3 and an M4V, as well as a Flash, which is quite useful. That's a rough overview. If I were to click next, we go into far more detail that really isn't what we're about at this point. You can see other videos for that. So I hope this gives you a good overview of how you can use Camtasia to spruce up your videos. There's lots more to do in Camtasia, so I recommend, once you've got the hang of these basics, you jump into the effects and start having a fiddle. I hope this has helped. Thank you.